Good day, good day, good day. I trust that you are doing very well. Let me just fix something very quickly. Um, there we go. Good afternoon. I trust that you are doing very well today. Welcome to today's chat and conversation on personal development and leadership. And my name is Kelvin Amwanza, and I'm just here to share some information that may be helpful as you have embarked on a journey to grow and become a better person. And more importantly, I'm here to support your desire and your goals that you have set out for yourself this year, because I truly care and I want to make sure that I also am a part of your journey so that you are able to achieve the goals and the visions that you have set out for yourself. So today I will be talking about a very important subject, and it's a subject on self-compassion, or how to practice self-compassion. It's a topic that is wide and there's a lot of information, but today I want just to go straight to the point so that I'm able to help you, because if you don't practice self-compassion on yourself, it's going to be very difficult for you to actually achieve some of the dreams or some of the visions that you have set out for yourself. So today I want you to just pay attention as I will be defining on what self-compassion is. I will also be defining, speaking about what you can do in terms of showing yourself self-compassion. I'll also speak about one important point out of many as to why self-compassion is important. So let's go and talk about self-compassion. But before we go further, talk about self-compassion, we have to look at the word compassion. What does compassion mean? What does compassion mean? Compassion means that you first of all have to acknowledge. You acknowledge first of all the suffering of somebody. For instance, if you meet somebody on the road and they are not looking good, they look like they haven't eaten, and they look like they are suffering. First of all, you have to acknowledge that condition in order for you to show them compassion. Without acknowledging the state of that individual, it's very difficult for you to actually show compassion. So in compassion, you are actually moved by the suffering that you have acknowledged, the suffering of the person, and you are moved regarding that suffering. In fact, the definition of compassion actually means to suffer with someone. And the idea that when you suffer with someone, you are moved, you are touched by their suffering, by their condition, not judging them, but this movement that happens in our hearts when we acknowledge individual suffering triggers something in the inside of us. We want to find ways to care for them. We want to find ways to support them. We want to find ways to help them, because that's what compassion is all about. You suffer with someone, or you feel for someone to the point that you truly want to help them. That's what compassion is all about, to suffer with someone to the point that you want to come up with ways and means to actually help an individual. That's what compassion is all about. But if you are saying that, if you are asking, but Kelvin, then I understand what compassion is all about. What does self-compassion mean, and how does it apply to my life, and how can I use it to empower myself so that I'm able to achieve some of the goals, some of the dreams that I have for myself? So here it is. In self-compassion, you are saying, and you are speaking to yourself to say, the same way you act and you show compassion on others, act the same way to yourself. So, for instance, if you have just experienced some form of failure, or you have just disappointed yourself, you thought you planned to wake up in the morning to go and do some things that are important to you, that will allow you to achieve some of your dreams, and you end up not going, or you had an appointment that you've forgotten, or you have just experienced some setback and failure. What self-compassion is all about, as I said earlier on, in compassion, we acknowledge the suffering, that you acknowledge what you have actually experienced in the moment of failure, in the moment of difficulty. Because in that acknowledgement, in that accepting, in that feeling, because what happens that sometimes when we go through something in life, we want either to suppress our emotions, or we want to actually judge ourselves, condemn ourselves, and look down on ourselves, degrade ourselves. That's not compassion, that's judgment. So when you are experiencing something, you actually acknowledge what you are going through, you acknowledge the emotion, and maybe perhaps you can even ask yourself a question. This is really tough. This failure, this setback I've experienced is quite something else. How can I care for myself? That's what self-compassion is all about. You acknowledge the feeling, you acknowledge the experience. You say then to yourself, how can I care for myself more while I'm dealing with this situation? What happens when you're not showing yourself self-care and you find self-compassion and you find yourself in a difficult situation, what happens, what follows thereafter, if you're not controlling your thoughts and you're not intentional about what you are going through, what happens that you are going to make impulsive decisions where you can you find yourself different means and ways to draw some comfort. That's why you end up, sometimes you've made goals and plans to eat healthy, but in a moment where you are distressed, where you have experienced a setback, the impulsive decision is made for you to go and eat junk food because there's no intention, and you are going to find comfort in eating junk food. To other individuals, when they're distressed, they want just to go out somewhere and drink themselves out, or some want to just go out there and just spend the money on themselves because they are looking for comfort. That's not the way that you show self-care. You have to acknowledge your emotions, acknowledge what you are feeling, and then decide and be intentional about to say, how can I care for myself in this state? The same way you would show compassion to the other. You acknowledge what they're going through and you say, how can I help? Right? That's self-compassion. The other aspect of self-compassion is that it means that you need to be kind to yourself. You need to be kind to yourself, and you need to have some level of understanding. You can seek understanding and be kind to other individuals when they're going through a tough moment. You understand them, you feel for them. If they're forgetting, people are grieving, maybe they have lost a loved one and they're in a season of grieving. And part of the thing that happens when individuals are grieving is that sometimes they're forgetful, sometimes they react. You understand what they are going through. And what you do in the moments that if you want to be there for them, is that you acknowledge and what they are going through, you understand, and you show kindness to them, not judgment. It's the same idea that when you find yourself in a setback, you find yourself in a state where you have failed. The first thing that you need to do to show yourself to be in a state where you extend self-compassion to yourself is that be kind to yourself. Understand the same understanding that you would show to the other person going through a similar situation like you are going through, is that you show kindness and you show understanding. The other important point, which I believe we neglect the most around self-compassion, is that we have to understand that we human beings in generally, we go through different things. We go through challenges, we go through setbacks, we go through failures, we go through difficult times, we go through losses. Those are our shared humanities. So there is a challenge just comes to everyone, the fact that we are human beings. So self-compassion is about accepting your humanness. That there are things that are just common to everyone as long as you are human. So when you go through something, a setback, a failure, a loss, a disappointment, a heartbreak, instead of coming very hard on yourself, be aware that actually being human has its own disadvantages. And one of them that we all share, rich or poor, is at some point in our life, we will suffer. At some point in our lives, we will experience setback. We share this as human beings. So you being understanding that this is a shared reality as a human being puts you in a place where you can care for yourself more, you can show yourself kindness, and you can proactively look for better ways and better means to care for yourself. So instead of judging yourself because you've failed, you look at yourself and say, it's part of you being a human being. We do make mistakes. How do I then move forward and pass the mistakes that I've made? That's what self-compassion is all about. In fact, it's what it is. If you are going to be truly a compassionate person who is going to show compassion to others, to the people you lead, to the people in your team, to your family, and to those that are around you, is that you have to get to a place where you truly understand that sometimes as human beings we will fail. This is just common. Sometimes as human beings we will make mistakes. You have to acknowledge that there is just a weakness in being a human being that brings about certain challenges on our path. And that way, when you understand, you're not going to judge others when you see that they have failed or they are not meeting their ideal potential. But the same way that you show compassion to others because you understand that we are all human beings and we are bound to fail, we are bound to suffer, is the same principle that you are going to use to yourself. That when you go through setbacks, you will be able to actually acknowledge that this is part of being a human being. Things may not go the way you have planned them to be. But I want to close with a very important point. How then, what are the benefits of showing yourself self-compassion? One important benefit, there are so many, but because of time, I'll speak about one. One of the benefits of showing yourself self-compassion is that it empowers you to have a growth mindset. Perhaps you're asking, Kelvin, how? This is what it is. When we stubbornly refuse to acknowledge that we are not weak, that we do not make mistakes, that we don't have weaknesses, well, therefore what happens is that we are going to settle in complacency. We are not going to grow. We are not going to become better. When we acknowledge our limitation, or when we fail to acknowledge our limitation in a way that is judgmental, in a way that is degrading, in a way that takes away our dignity, what that does also, it leads us to defeatism, where you think that you are incapable of rising above the challenges that you face. But what self-compassion does is that it both helps us to acknowledge our strength, it helps us to acknowledge our weaknesses, it helps us to acknowledge how far we can go, and also it helps us to acknowledge our limitation. When we acknowledge our limitation from a point of being showing ourselves self-compassion, remember the principle of compassion is that you suffer with someone to the point that you want actually to find ways to help them. Yeah, you get the point? But in self-compassion, what you are saying, when you acknowledge your struggle and you have shown yourself self-compassion, what is going to happen is that you're going to look for ways and means to better yourself, to get yourself out of the situation that you are in. So self-compassion leads us then to a place where we have a growth mindset. We don't get into a state where we think that we have what it takes, but also when we find our own limitation and our own weaknesses, we are not just going to settle and feel defeated. We are going to acknowledge our limitation, our weaknesses, our failures and setbacks. But then we are going to say, how can I get out of the situation that I'm in? And in you trying to find ways how to win, how to succeed, how to become better, you are actually putting yourself on a path where mentally you develop a growth mindset. So from me for today, that's all I came to just share with you. And I truly wish you all the best. And I'm praying and wishing you that you are going to continue to grow and continue to show yourself self-compassion so that you can be in a more stable state mentally and emotionally to achieve your dreams and to achieve your goals. And if you're looking for a coach, a mentor, that somebody can walk with you on a journey to become a better version of yourself, I'm here to support you. You can just inbox me and or email me, or just find different means on the platform where you have come to watch this video, and contact me, and we can make some arrangements so that I'm able to be helpful in your life and in your journey of becoming the greatest version of yourself. Enjoy the rest of the day, and God bless you. Bye bye.